solution. And knowing that is the beginning of greatness. It is the start of success. And as for that question, what if I fail? Here's some insight. That thought is wasted time and it is wasted energy, because as far as your goals go, you pull the strings. You are the writer, you are the director, and you are the actor. Failure only occurs when you write it into your script, when you choose it for an ending. And it is one ending, one of many. It is one approach of many. Once you've started that march towards what's important to you, do not let failure be the choice that you make. Choose growth. Choose the adventure. Choose the long way home. Victory over defeat, the uphill climb over regret. Choose to move forward when most wouldn't. It's the decision you'll always be thankful you made. I once heard a metaphor that our existence is like standing behind a curtain with tears or holes, and reality becomes which holes we decide to look through when we're peering out at the world on the other side. What do we want to see? And this message, well, it's for whoever out there feels like giving up or folding their hand. Whoever's been waiting for things to change but only sees the clock moving forward, this is a reminder that the very thing you need is on the other side of that curtain. And you don't need to change who you are. You just need to position yourself to see it. Because it's there and you're ready. When life hurts, we might have every reason to be in pain, to feel lost or confused, but I always find it to be a beautiful reminder that we also have every reason to seek out from that pain something we've never been before. Why is it that our greatest accomplishments come when our backs are to the wall? Our greatest acquisitions after losing something dear to us? Why is it that we find ourselves and our way only after being lost? I've never heard someone say, "Thank God I never changed or left or tried something new." No, it's thank God the adversity forced upon me the courage to evolve into something more. Pain is to our potential what water is to a seed. It's the beginning of everything, unshackling, opening the gate, and making us realize we were sitting on the answers. That adversity doesn't stop you, it makes you stronger. That the down times lift you up. That when you lose yourself, you find a part of you that can now become the bridge to your future. See, I understand that things are difficult and challenging. I understand they're not easy, and I'm not asking you to pretend it's not happening or ignore it or close your eyes. I'm asking you to find, amidst all of this, that one thing that will get you to tomorrow. I'm asking you to find the courage to say, yes, this hurts. Yes, I'm stretched thinner than I've ever been, but I'm still going to find a way. I'm still going to make it happen. Because at the end of the day, you won't remember what hurt or what stood in your way, but you'll remember what you did about it. You'll remember how you arranged those pieces. How when your instincts said run, you stopped and built something you'll never forget. I often ask myself, what differentiates those who wish for better outcomes and those who do something about it? What separates the dreaming from the progress and the wishing from the reality. Sure, life is complex. There are a lot of moving parts to understand. But I think this element is simple. Those who build things in life are willing to not only see a reality that hasn't yet materialized, but they also understand that in a world of no, they have to be the yes. They have to believe in their ability to drive towards finish lines that no one else sees. And see, meaning cannot come to fruition without that discomfort. Or as Nietzsche put it, one must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star, and that's just it. Most people see what is, most people conform, they do not create. To change something means you have to be the metaphorical eagle amongst pigeons, flying above all that, everyone, everything else, superseding the limiting beliefs that shackle others to their one-dimensional realities. But most importantly, it means you can see. You can see what no one else can. You have line of sight to what no one else understands. See, in this world, no one walks up to you on the street, puts their arm around you and says, "Hey kid, that dream, follow that, because I can tell you're going to do big things." No one says, "Hey, that business idea, you're going to thrive next year, I know it. That relationship, it's going to happen. That level of fitness, oh, I can see it already." Nope. People see what's right in front of them. And as it pertains to you and your world, your life, people are those pigeons. And so that leaves you with a choice. Do you accept that? Do you blend in, take the scraps you're allowed to consume, the crumbs laid out in front of you? Or do you step back and acknowledge that this is going to be tough, this is going to hurt, it's going to push me further as a person than I've ever been pushed? But you know what I get in return? That view. I get to live above the clouds with those who don't wait in line. No, they become the main attraction. They transform what is into what will be, because the world, it has a way of ensuring that we really want what we say we do. Greatness in any area of life is reserved for those willing to carry forward when most would turn back, to build a bridge to something greater when most people point out that your bridge is not connected to anything, that it's a waste of time, it's trivial, useless, irrational. Good. Changing your life in the world around you has to be irrational. Taking the status quo and shaking it, saying, "I'm going to alter this landscape," is irrational. But from irrationality comes the future. So when you feel like the world is against you, when you have an uphill battle to climb, when there are a million reasons for you to turn around, understand that this is nothing more than an indicator that you are right where you need to be, against the current, bringing something new to life. See, if it were easy, it would already exist. But changing your life, that makes you an architect of the unseen. So build on the days you want to build, on the days you don't build, when they understand, build, and when they assume you've altogether lost your mind, build. Sure, it's not easy, but it's worth it. And when tomorrow comes, and it looks a lot different from today, when you've grown, evolved, transformed, and you look back and don't even recognize the person you once were, that won't be because you listened to the chirping of the doubters and the naysayers. It won't be because when strangers told you to give up, you packed your bags and went home. No, it will be because you rose above all that. They saw empty space and you saw a world undiscovered. They saw your head in the clouds while you built those castles in the air. You were always on a trajectory to something greater. You didn't need to convince them. You needed to convince yourself. To unlock the shackles and take to the sky, leave everything that once held you down behind. This isn't about anyone else. It's about the conversation between you and the horizon that awaits. There have been times in my life when I've been down. I've been out, I've been afraid. I've looked up at the road ahead and been completely unsure. And I can say firsthand, when you're going through a situation like this, that it essentially consumes you, right? It's all you see, it's all you think about, to the point where the good stuff, the opportunity all around you, it becomes transparent. You see right through it. It's the negative, it's misfortune for a period of time that becomes your narrative, becomes the story. What if this is forever? What if I'm not as good as I want to be or as they are? What if things don't work out? Never mind the fact that you've been here before and you've battled back. Never mind how far you've come. No, that takes a back seat to the discomfort that we feel right now, and that's the irrationality of the human mind. We forget. We forget that the lows create the highs. That temporary isn't forever, that you can't stand with any type of authority if you've never before fallen. Accomplishing anything is never just walking up and reaching a goal. It's about getting back up over and over again. Taking the bad breaks in stride and seeing the losses for what they are, necessary. What if I told you that the difficult times weren't just manageable, they were what you needed? Those moments when you felt helpless were a bridge to something better. A demonstration of just how capable you are and how strong you can be. Feeling lost, feeling defeated, sure, it's unsettling. But it's also a reminder that you are exactly where you need to be. In one form or another, your struggle becomes your answer. Life isn't always calm seas and sunny skies, but if you let it, it will teach you to weather any storm to come out on top. Never lose sight of the opportunity, it's there. Hiding behind the struggle, immersed in the ups and downs, and when you know that you will not let yourself stay down, that you'll get up. Struggle becomes a building block, not a weight around the ankles. With each stumble, you become taller. With each misstep, you step forward. The problem will never be tough times. It will be refusing to find that next level for fear of their materialization. Regret is a choice. And for those who refuse to stay down, it will be a choice that they'll never know.
So, who's ready for an exciting webinar? And I'm super excited tonight. We've got a really sensational two guests that we're going to be interviewing. And so let me share my screen with you quickly and we can rock and roll and get going. Always like to start on time. So firstly, what are we going to be going through tonight? It's a topic that comes up all the time in our mastermind. It's generational wealth, and something that I'm really, really intrigued by. We've got one of the co-founders here of Calio Capital, and it's this whole social and conscious capital as well. So we talk often about the hard skills of money and the soft skills of money. What we're going to be talking about tonight is building a lasting legacy, strategies for sustainable family wealth. And I'm super excited to be invited tonight, and well, not to be invited, to be fair, to be joined tonight by David Lipschitz and Nicholas Liebman. Wonderful to have both of you here. Firstly, thanks so much for being online. It's fantastic to have you.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for inviting us.
And David, just as a matter of interest, while we get Nick off mute, where are you right now? Are you in South Africa, in America? Whereabouts are you?
So I am in Connecticut, Greenwich, Connecticut. That's about 40 minutes from New York City. I can see it in the distance, and we are in the middle of a heat wave.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant.
Speaking to people in Cape Town this morning, all the wrapped up, they were a little jealous.
And Nicholas, you're down in Cape Town, eh?
Yeah, so I'm on the southern peninsula. I'm in a little village called Scarborough, which is an hour outside of Cape Town. Yeah, it's raining and pouring, and yeah, I can feel the elements.
Well, I know that weather's on its way because, David, I'll just say, which no one likes to hear, but anyway, I've just been out on the boat. The weather was wonderful, and if this is what winter's like, then I'll take it all day long. So anyway, let's rock and roll and get into it. So I just want to share some slides quickly before we hand over to you guys, because everyone's come to see you, and that's the whole purpose of why we're here. I want to ask people, and I always ask a question up front, and for those of you who've seen me present before, these are 4 new questions. So the first one is, who here would like one, if not all 4 of these things? So to have your own personal wealth coach. So if you think that this would be something of interest to you, just type in there yes in the chat box. Secondly, what about having a seasoned support and advisory team to provide you with personalized solutions? So not just being put in a box, actually having a team of seasoned support and advisory team members to help you through the process. What about asset allocation and setting up to build a globally diversified portfolio and having a team to support and assist you with that? And finally, what about access to world-class in-person events? And if this resonates with you, and if all 4 of these things resonate with you, I'm super excited to share with you something later that we've been putting together in terms of a process where you can get access to all 4 of these things for yourself and your family. Now, I often talk about Jordan. He's a high net worth 55-year-old, worked very hard all his life. He wants to build a portfolio to ensure his wealth is preserved. What does he want, and what did he want when he came to us? He wanted to build a globally diversified passive income of at least $5,000 a month. Then it was $10,000, and then it was $25,000, simply and safely. He wanted to diversify his investments between countries, currencies, and assets. He wanted to use his limited time to get effective results with predictability. He wanted to save decades of frustration and millions of dollars to get the right knowledge for him and his family. He wanted wealth protection, a plan B, and peace of mind. He wanted to be held accountable and have an accountability partner to get results. He wanted to have a family office to help him manage all his financial affairs. He wanted to create generational wealth for his family. He wanted to have a fully executed wealth plan and investor strategy sheet, and he wanted to get results. So if you resonate with Jordan, then this is certainly, you're in the right place. What about Victoria, an entrepreneur in her 50s, devoted to her family and business, aiming to build generational wealth? Victoria has a packed schedule, seeks a streamlined investment strategy that empowers her to make wise decisions, aligns her with goals, and frees up her time for her grandchildren and daughters. She wants to understand the investment landscape. She feels empowered to make the right decisions for herself and her family. And finally, she wants to focus on achieving financial freedom to cherish more moments with her loved ones. And again, if this is something that resonates with you, either Jordan or Victoria, then you're in the right place. We always talk about living a life unlimited. How do you do it? Through Diversification 5.0. And for those of you who are interested, I do have a challenge coming up at the end of July, which is where we, for 2 hours a day, for 5 days in a row, I'll go a hell of a lot deeper A number of the Calio team members are actually part of that, and we run through the entire process. So make a note if you want to go to diversificationchallenge.com, and you can go and see all the details. And before we get started, I just wanted to share with you that this is the last masterclass in a series of 7. So we started off, and it feels like a long journey, but we started off with global forecasting, and that was with James Painter. Then we went on to the 6 pillars of wealth, and that was run by Anthony. Then we went on to the psychology of money, and that was Karen Wallman, and how she's marrying together the Enneagram, which is all around your personality and the type of decisions you make. We then moved on to global capital markets, diversification, learning from those who were doing it. And we had incredible speakers from America, from Europe, from Hong Kong, and we actually had Nicholas's partner, Garth Wallman, on that as 4 panelists. Then we moved to passive income, real people, real stories. You know, a lot of people say, oh, it's too good to be true, and those people, you know, have lots of money, and I don't necessarily have that or whatever. And I don't agree with that. I believe we can learn from real people and real stories. We had an incredible conversation with them. Then we moved on to legacy and family relationships with money. Again, Karen Wallman took us to a whole nother level in terms of the Enneagram and wealth. And tonight, I'm super excited to do generational wealth, social and conscious capital, where we bring it all together. So it's been quite a series, and Nicholas and David, no pressure, but we're wrapping it up in a nice bow. We started right at the beginning with, you know, forecasting and making money, and now now that we made all our money, what do we actually do with it in terms of the big picture? If you do want a Q&A, we will run an interactive session at the end. And if you're not sure what to do next, you can literally go to this link, and I can see that Nick has put it in there in terms of our navigator, which will help you in terms of your next steps. It's a digital way, asks you some good questions, and helps you make the right decisions for yourself in terms of going forward. So I always say to people, there's only 2 things you need: the right information and the right partners. And if you share the right information, as an example, the webinar we did last week with Karen was all about the Enneagram, and our Mastermind members are super lucky because tomorrow we're going super deep into the next layer of this Enneagram and wealth and how we make the right decisions. And then we've actually got, if you enjoy what Nicholas and David are talking about, Karen, Nicholas, David, Garth, and myself are all coming together to put a weekend together, which is already organized at the end of August. So it's the 28th of August to the 1st of September. And what you'll get there is you'll learn about the Enneagram and wealth. You'll learn about social and conscious capital. You'll learn about generational wealth, building, you'll build lifelong lasting relationships. So there's nothing better than being around like-minded people for these conversations. It's at a boutique hotel, which I look forward to Nick telling us a little bit more about in terms of in the cradle of humankind, which again is where civilization was actually found. There's local animals. So for those that want to go on game drives, there's a Josie tour. And also, if you want a bit of South African culture, there's a Springboks versus All Blacks game. Amazing dinners and lunches, and it's the 28th of August to the 1st of September. So if you are interested in the Wealth Weekend, just type in there Wealth Weekend. You can do it at any point. And I think just to give you a little bit of a perspective, I'm now going to pivot to Nicholas and David. And they're going to share a little bit. But with all due respect, it's very, very difficult to share all of their knowledge and all of their experience in a masterclass. And so what we're going to do tonight, and what we discussed in terms of preparation, was for people to understand what it is they do and how it works. But please understand it's the tip of the iceberg. We'll be going a lot deeper within the Mastermind, and then even deeper within the Wealth Weekend in terms of the actual process. But without further ado, I wanted to hand over to the 2 gentlemen that have joined us, because you didn't come here to listen to me, you came here to listen to them. Nicholas, I know you and I spoke earlier, and you wanted to kind of get going with yourself. I don't mind in what order we go in. And David, from your perspective, I'm very sort of happy to jump around in terms of how you guys want to do it. But my understanding is, Nicholas, we're going to start with you, and then we're going to pivot to David. Is that correct?
I'm happy with that. Yeah, that works.
Perfect. So, Nicholas, I've known you for a very long time. I'll never forget actually being on a game reserve with Roger Hamilton, and a lady called Hilda Lunderstedt, a lot of people will know that name in this community, said, "No, you must look out for this guy called Nicholas." And I remember going along to the event, and you had these long dreadlocks and everything, and I thought, I wonder who this junior guy is at Calio, and what his role is and why he's been sent along to this event. And as it turned out, was the co-founder of Calio, and that was the best part of 10 years ago. So we've walked a long journey together, but not only at Calio, but also in terms of what you've been doing and what we've been doing. And I'm fascinated by this whole space. You and I have spoken about it many, many times, the different components to capital, not just effectively the money side. And I'd love to kind of to give everyone a taste of what it is and also why this is important from a Calio perspective, that you guys provide this holistic service.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. And it's been one hell of a journey, and I remember those days very well. So I think, you know, it's a journey, and I think that's the first realization, is that, you know, let's talk about conscious capital as a principle, and why it exists. I think that capitalism has served us well in many respects, but it has let us down, society and the environment, and I think that doesn't mean that it's kind of like, let's throw the baby out the bath. And what we have been exploring and coming to the realization is that capital has an extremely important role to play in life on Earth, and the kind of idea that one has to be either philanthropic or for profit is kind of being blurred now. And the kind of introduction of the philosophy of conscious capital is taking off. And there's some really good examples out there of companies that have adopted this approach and have not only been socially conscious and environmentally conscious and conscious of things other than profit, but have actually delivered on the bottom line. And I think that's important for me, is that, you know, if I look at my story and I rewind probably 12 years ago, so just after I'd met you, I was kind of living between Johannesburg and the cradle of humankind, and I found myself there on the weekends, and I was living in this tent, and I just founded Calio with Garth, and we really broke away because we were kind of disheartened by how the banks treated a client as an object. And it was kind of, we developing this solution, we're selling this solution to you, you buy the solution, and that's the end of the discussion, right? And you've got different tiers, and that's finished. Where that wasn't really working for us. We were identifying with humans that had built businesses, that were creating products and services that were effectively serving society. And we wanted to build meaningful relationships, but also meaningful solutions to meet their vast and diverse requirements. So we broke away, we started Calio. And at the time, as I say, I was living in between the kind of this natural environment in the cradle, and then, you know, with my suit and tie on in the world of capital. And I asked myself, you know, which way do I go? Do I go down this natural spiritual path that is more socially conscious and environmentally conscious? Or do I kind of keep to the business trajectory? And the answer was both. And I found that the necessity was to kind of try and merge these. And over the years, we've explored this. And our relationship with the Lipschitz family is an example of that. And this is about really getting into the values and the things that are important to people in terms of why are you accumulating the wealth? What is it for? What are the values around that? And what processes can we go through to kind of realize what those values are? Because I think more often than not, we kind of focus on the financial element, which is it's a cornerstone, and it's a given. It must produce a return. The kind of other side is to broaden our definition of what capital is. How does it relate to our family, and how does that relate to then the broader community and the environment? So this has been kind of it's been a journey. It's been a 12-year journey, and I sometimes feel like I'm at the beginning of the journey. And when you asked me to speak, I thought, well, I can share what I have for where I'm at, but I certainly don't see myself as an expert. I see myself as more of a student of conscious capital, and I'm learning every day. And even the video that was on before this webinar started, I was learning more. And again, it's about challenging the status quo It's about expanding our awareness of the reality of what we are dealing with, in this particular example, capital, and then to kind of explore how to do things differently. And sometimes that has challenges. And sometimes, you know, you kind of, if I look back 10 years ago when I started speaking about this, people would say, okay, sure, like you want me to give you a hug? Like, you know, and then I said, yes, I'd love a hug, because I did. But the reality was that there was a practical way that this could work. And it was about acknowledging all the various stakeholders in the ecosystem, okay? That you have people, you have the planet, okay? You have profit, right? These are the three elements. There may be more, but let's focus on those. Within the people, you've got clients, you've got the operators in the business, the creators of the service or product, you've got investors, and you've got suppliers, okay? Now, typically, if you look at a normal approach, would be to squeeze your suppliers as hard as you can, get it for the cheapest price possible, okay? So you get the lowest input so that you can have the highest markup so you can make the most amount of profit. Now, that is a typical process that business has adopted. It doesn't need to necessarily be that. How we look at our suppliers. So that's one area. How we source. The type of investors. What are the investors looking for? The types, what are the operators looking to achieve out of this for their lives? Okay. And what are the clients trying to achieve? What is the value? What are they trying to achieve from this? And how can we kind of bring that all together, that in order for one to receive, the other doesn't have to necessarily lose? So this kind of circular approach to doing business has been a driving force, at least in my journey and Callio's journey. And it's as I say, it's at the beginning. I recently attended a retreat. It was in the Cradle of Humankind. You've pointed out that we have a connection to that. It's called Project 58. And that was the place that I stayed on the weekend. I was puzzling. I was sitting there going, okay, well, now what, right? Am I a yogi, hippie, naturalist, or am I a business person, okay? And eventually, I kind of realized, as I've said, that I think I'm both. But why don't we create a space where people can really connect to themselves in a natural environment, okay, and go through different processes to live the life that they want to live? It could be through spirituality, it could be through art, it could be through business, it could be through food, through philosophy, whichever way it would be. We decided that it would be a great project to create a space where people could come into an environment like this and take the kind of layers away, go through a process, connect to body, mind, and spirit, and then make decisions and integrate that into one's life. And that was really the kind of idea behind 58.
One thing, Nicholas, I just want to kind of, without cutting you off, but I just wanted to kind of reiterate, because I think a number of people will sit here and they'll go, oh, you know, it sounds airy-fairy, you know, woohoo and all that sort of stuff. But I just want to remind everyone that you are also the co-founder of a multi-family office that manages hundreds of millions of dollars. And I think it's really important that people, because, you know, I come from Knysna. Trust me, there's plenty of people that go in the forest and look for spirituality, but you are asking for, and you're listening to someone that is playing in both worlds. And I just think it's important just to keep reminding people of that context, you know?
Okay, thanks, Scott. I sometimes have to remind myself that. So 58 is a physical expression of that, right? It's a place, it's a physical place. There are currently 40-ish rooms. It's a reasonably large-scale project. It's got elements of non-profit, elements of profit, but overall it's trying to develop a sustainable return, which will return shareholder capital over a period of time with some return. But it's really to demonstrate that we can apply this holistic approach to doing business in the way we look at all the various stakeholders. And for those of you that want to know more about it or want to actually come and spend some time with us on the land, you'll see firsthand all the way from how we've built, how we've involved the community, how we've learned ourselves, how we've understood different types of farming, different types of conservation. And for me, almost the biggest part is that all the groups that we've hosted there that are doing such incredible things in the world. I'd say that our biggest client are NGOs, and doing incredible stuff, all the way from economics to farming to different sorts of things. So people out there are looking to do things better and looking to live a more meaningful life. And I think the point is that we shouldn't necessarily look at this as a trade-off, right? You've got this, you don't have to kind of give up the things that you want in life and the kind of comforts for the sake of doing good. You can merge the two and do well. And out of this, out of 58 in the cradle, we actually birthed an impact fund with two very smart guys that run a business that we're very fortunate to be in partnership with, called Sesha Capital. And Sesha Capital is one example of conscious capital. So it is a style of investing called impact investing. And impact investing has a whole long list of definitions of how it can improve society. It can improve the way we treat the natural environment, and so on and so on. And that we seeded that first fund and invested into 10 companies that did extremely well. And we've now gained the second fund, which is, I think it's like 5 or 6 times the size of the first fund. And now we've got institutional investors. So that's kind of like a balance to show, okay, in this hippie environment, in this nature connected space, where we were open enough to talk about the potential of doing good and making money, emerged this incredible opportunity to now invest on a purpose-based approach and still delivering returns. So much so that we've not only been able to allocate the first 40 and show tremendous growth in the underlying companies, but that we've attracted this institutional capital from very well-known companies that are in South Africa and abroad. So those are some of the examples. I was thinking about it, like, okay, so what would be valuable to people listening to this? And I'm not sure any of it, but I'm sharing nonetheless, because for myself, I'm inspired by this. And I think that it really is a opportunity for us to re-look at the role of capital in our lives. And personally, I think if I typically ask people, what do you believe capital to be? The answer would normally be, and it was my answer when I was on a retreat at 58 about 2 years ago, was, well, it's your money, it's the things that you have, right? And the answer was actually quite surprising, where it was far broader than that. It was, well, have you considered social capital? And I was like, okay, what does that mean? Have I considered experiential capital? Have I considered environmental capital? Have I considered spiritual capital, cultural capital, all these other capitals? So then I started to ask myself, well, what is capital? What is this capital that we're talking about? Well, it took me down a rabbit hole, but this is where I've landed, and it's certainly evolving. Is that capital is the necessary tool that we can access, okay, to build holistic wealth. And holistic wealth very much includes financial capital, but not to the exclusion of the other. Scott, there's probably a good time to maybe segue into social. And as you rightly pointed out, I mean, this is it's a very deep, broad topic that is challenging governments and companies. So it's not going to be covered in 2 minutes. And I'm going to try and apply this in this little segment to families and individuals. And obviously in the retreat, we'll be able to go on a far deeper dive where we will explore how to develop your purpose in line with your values, okay? Your values, not mine. And then how to allocate your time and your resources to develop and use your capital to create holistic wealth. So one of these pillars of capital is social capital. And that's one of the topics that has come up. So social capital is an extremely powerful form of capital. It is the value that we exchange as a result of the services that we provide into society. And this could be anywhere from the goodwill that we build amongst each other, the connections, the network, and the kind of moral fiber and the ability to give as many people access to tools of capital as we can, because it's better for all of us. And this social capital is such an interesting, piece, because if one were to lose their financial capital, okay, for whatever reason that may be, you still can draw on your social capital. That's your network. That's the kind of things that you've done good in this world, okay, that people will still want to deal with you and engage with you. And that's kind of, I mean, there are many papers on social capital and how we create diversity in our societies so that we can grow our social capital. And the more we grow our social capital, the better it is for all of us, because everybody gets lifted out of this kind of poverty and we can all live a far more fulfilled life. Yeah, that's my kind of my high level, Scott. If you've got any sort of questions that you'd like, that anything that's coming to mind.
What I'd suggest, Nicholas, a couple of things. Let's I want to share two things with everyone, and then my suggestion is let's pivot to David, and we can kind of have the conversation with David as well, and then we can come back to almost having a three-way conversation, if that makes sense. So
that's perfect.
Share, which the first one was actually something you reminded me of while you were talking. So I always love this quote by Richard Branson, where he says, doing good is good for business. And, this, again, you said, not only yourself 10, 12 years ago, but, certainly 20 years ago, it was like an oxymoron. You either made a profit or you ruined the planet or whatever. Like, you couldn't, or you hugged a tree type thing. And the other thing I thought was really interesting, and David, this sort of pivots into you. So this Knight Frank report came out, and they basically interviewed sort of top 579,000, so it's nearly 600,000 wealthiest people in the world. And we're going to go through this tomorrow more in the mastermind. But all that I did want to show you is some key numbers here. 81% generational shift. 8% of affluent female Gen Zs expect to grow their wealth this year. 11% are becoming more diverse. So women are starting to make it up. 65% on ESG, which is a fancy word for pretty much what Nick is talking about, in terms of the process. So I just wanted to show that there's literally some significant trends that are happening. It's not just, me and Nicholas and David that are off on some little tangent trying to decide this. This is amongst the 600,000 wealthiest people in the world. But David, I know your story, and again, I only know you through the Callio family. So again, gratitude to Nicholas and Garth and the rest of the Callio family. And one of the things that I always talk about is at our mastermind level, I'm always sitting there. I'm like a little, I call myself a wealth hacker. I'm ferreting around, trying to find out what is Nicholas and David and Garth and them teaching all the wealthy families, because I want to know for myself. And then my attitude is Zig Ziglar. If I can help enough other people get what they want, then I can have it for myself as well. So that's sort of my general kind of philosophy. And we were sitting there in March at the Wealth Weekend, and Anthony, who's one of Nicholas's colleagues, was like, "Oh, and you should do this, and you should talk to David and everything." And I was like, "Okay, come on, Nicholas, David, you actually need to unlock this secret key." And just the one thing I want to say before I hand over to you, David, which I found fascinating, was when you and I were chatting a week or two ago, and you said, "Listen, you actually started out like almost doing this at a McKinsey level, dealing with the billion-dollar families in India." And most people, I don't know if they do or don't know, but some of the wealthiest family-run companies are in India and or Southeast Asia. And that's kind of where you were focusing. If people don't know McKinsey's, it's probably one of the most expensive consulting companies in the world. And my caveat into you, David, is what I'm super excited and grateful for is I don't have $1 billion and I can't afford McKinsey's. And so I'm deeply grateful for you to be here and to be sharing with us and with our community around the nuances that generally were only available to those $1 billion families that the rest of us want to bring to our families. So thank you so much for joining us.
Great, thanks, Scott. I've actually got a few slides really to help shape my thinking.
If you literally just go share screen, it should be able to bring them up.
Okay, let me pull up my slides. I've just put these together in a lot. I'll be one sec. Bear with me. Everything just shrinks. Share screen. There we go. Okay, I can assume you can see.
Just put it into PowerPoint mode. We're seeing it in slides. So yeah, that one there. Yeah, perfect. Well done.
So just a little bit about me. And this is kind of the order that I have my own story, which I'm not really going to go into now. But stories are important, and at the Wealth Weekend, we'll delve into that. So I started off, I didn't start off life as a management consultant, but I started off life in Joburg, born and bred in Joburg, educated mostly in Joburg. I was lucky enough to go to the UK to go to university, worked in corporate, got very frustrated in big corporate in South Africa. And this was in the mid to late 80s. And then I joined, I started into this world of management consulting, not initially with McKinsey, but with an English firm, and then joined McKinsey. So one of the things around the management consulting, as Scott mentioned, is that McKinsey can be a dirty word, and often is in South Africa and around the world. But I did get an opportunity to work globally, and a lot of that was in India, which was so much fun for me. I just learned so much, but just happened to be that a lot of private enterprise in India and in Southeast Asia are family-owned businesses. So I kind of developed this bit of an expertise in family businesses, family-owned businesses, family-controlled businesses. And one of the things I became curious about and felt unskilled in doing is understanding the dynamics of people and leadership within those sorts of contexts. So I actually stepped out and went back. I'm a bit of a nerd, so I always keep stepping back out of the workplace into the academic world. And I studied clinical psychology, and I actually ran a therapy practice in South Africa, dealing with couples and families. And I suppose because I had this consulting background as well, I landed up dealing with a lot of squabbling families, and particularly around family businesses. So I read a bit more and got a bit more involved in family businesses. So I had the skill in working with families as a psychologist, now developing the skill as working with family businesses. And then through my own experience, landed up managing a lot of family money, for which I was very ill-equipped to do. So back to university, and I became what's known in America as a financial psychologist. Whatever the hell that is, I'm still trying to figure that out. But what it did do, it was a really interesting experience around, it was a very practical course to get registered. Tips, tools, techniques, a lot of understanding generational differences, and uncovering largely anxiety around money, which I'm going to get into in a couple of minutes. And just to say, I'm also a husband, a father, a son, I'm a family member. This applies to me as much as to anybody else. And I struggle with a lot of these things myself and my own family. I think similarly to Nick, I'm a student. I'm also a consultant, and I've consulted to a number of families. But I'm learning all the time. So let me, I just, as I said, all families are different. I don't follow a fixed approach when working with families. That's become the mainstay of work that I do, is working with high net worth families, multi-generational families. And typically it is going to be an element of family, an element of family business, maybe, but certainly an element of family wealth. And then what pops out at the end is usually a family constitution. That's really the start of the story, but let me take you through these step by step, just to give an example or give you some thoughts around these, and hopefully make it practical what I mean. And there's stuff I'm hoping that you'll be able to take away immediately and be able to apply to yourselves, or at least start thinking about, or conversations with your families around things which maybe you haven't thought about. So let's talk about family as number one. Every family has a money story. As I mentioned, when we get to the Wealth Weekend, we're going to actually delve into your family story. And understanding your money story, what that does is tends to surface all the beliefs, myths, superstitions that we carry with us. Moneygrams, they call technically. But it's really the anxiety that generates that needs to be managed. One of the things that I learned as a therapist, as a consultant, is that money generally is the greatest taboo. And it's one of the most universal things that I've experienced. And I've worked across the globe in some very interesting countries and places. And seems to be, and including communist countries, it seems to be something that's universal around these money stories and the beliefs and myths that we carry. And one of the things that we could do in the Wealth Weekend, but it's something you could start doing with your family, is just to understand, what are those beliefs? What are those myths that you carry from your family that you inherited, that you might not, that you hold to be true, that might not really be serving you right now, that are, without you even knowing, generate anxiety? So one of the things with the families that I do is to highlight these. And then I work with the family to say, okay, what do you want to keep? Not all of these beliefs and myths and superstitions are like bad and generate, are things that need to get rid of, but some are and some aren't. So how can we be continuous with the past in terms of legacy, but also discontinuous with the past? What is the bad stuff that we inherited? And it might be stuff that was relevant at a particular time for particular people in a particular context, that's no longer relevant now. Certainly true for me, and the way my father grew up and the way that his father grew up. So where can we respectfully be discontinuous with our pasts and say, you know, thank you, Mom, thank you, Dad, I'm going to take it from now. I find a lot of work that I'm doing in this space is around forgiveness and reconciliation. It could be around money. It often is. This is the tough work of the therapy. It's not always easy. There's a long. It can be a long process. So these are sort of the stuff that I work with families. And as you were talking earlier, Scott, and I'm sure some of the stuff, the psychology around the Enneagram would pop up now as well. So that would be really interesting as you have gone through the Enneagram and you kind of know your own profile, to see how that might slot in.
Well, I mean, just on that note, can I just steal the screen just for 2 seconds? Because I mean, we're literally going through this tomorrow at a mastermind level. And I've actually got it here. No, here it is here. So I'm not gonna talk about it, but exactly what you've just spoken about, what they're effectively doing in collaboration with the Calio consulting team, is the 9 different Enneagram types, and then the way they behave and what their strategy should be and everything. And it's, you know, if you take what David's saying from a psychology perspective, which is knowing, you know, who you are and what your background is and everything else, and then you know your Enneagram type, it makes for investing so much better than guessing in the dark, you know, is the best way to describe it. Right. So
it's actually, while you're talking, just reminded of a book now. I've got to try. He's actually a South African, ex-South African, Brent Kessel. He runs a firm called Abacus Financial Advisory in the West Coast, somewhere in LA, I think. And he's written a book about money archetypes, which fits in very nicely to the Enneagram. I don't think he knew about the Enneagram at the time, but I thought it's a very easy to read book around money archetypes, if anybody's interested in that, which is really around your profile there of the Enneagram. So thanks, Scott. So Number two is family businesses. These are some of the issues that I typically deal with: succession, family members joining the business. Do you have criteria? Are they just automatically accepted? In India, the in-laws is a big issue. I guess that's also a universal thing. In-laws were a great business model for me in my therapy practice. There was always drama with in-laws, and my therapy practice was full of brothers and sisters-in-law and their dramas. Ownership of assets, dividends, declaring dividends, salaries, profit share, all these sorts of things, particularly if it's private. Conversations around, does business support the family? Does family support the business? How does that work? How do you draw boundaries? What do you talk about at the dinner table? When does it intrude in the family? All those sorts of things. So that's just a sense of what I deal with family businesses. And then family wealth, and you've spoken about a lot of these things already. Values we've spoken about. I use the values as a family values, kind of what holds the family together. It's really interesting for me when we look at multi-generations, when we're having an entrepreneur who's started off and done really well in a business that's like not sexy, that's manufacturing or farming. It's not in a and the kids or the next generation or third generation have gone off to around the world and have become lawyers and accountants and have done MBAs at Harvard and Stanford, and they don't want to go back to their family business in Germiston or wherever in the far northern parts of the country. So how do you hold the family together in that? And how do you allow or use money as an enabler rather than golden handcuffs? And that's often tough conversations with parents and kids where, sometimes I'm referee, sometimes I'm just facilitator. There is trusts, how are those structured? In one or two cases, I've been appointed as the protector or trustees, as a trustee, just to hold the family's interests at heart, because often I'm told by financial advisors or trust funds, managing the money is easy, managing the family is impossible, and that's kind of where I step in often as the translator between the two. Philanthropy, there's a whole conversation around that. Equality versus fairness amongst the children. That's a huge conversation. I'm in the middle of that in one family now. And these are just stories, discussions, and from that would typically generate, or I like to generate, a family constitution. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard of this. You may have a family constitution. I mean, simply put, it's a non-binding document, really, or put another way, not legally binding, but ethically binding. That's I like to do is to develop, I can do it myself, but it's not my constitution. It should be the family's constitution. So I help them put it together, which can include things like a letter of wishes, but should be separate, or they go together. And there's no real structure to it, but the things that are included are things like, what are the family values? For instance, I'm working with a family now where actually they've listed all their family values, just, thinking off the top of their head, but actually having worked with them, I've realized what holds this family together was the death of one of their children. And that became very important for them because the family were all actually going off in different directions, valuing different things, splitting apart themselves and the wealth, and it was that recognition and what that meant for them that actually could help them step towards each other. So understanding the family history, I'm also very surprised how people don't know their own family stories, or they only know one part of it told by their parents, which is obviously through a particular lens. Relationships to money, we've spoken about. I just think it's interesting having it articulated it and people talking about it. What sort of investment strategy do people want? Are we going to go through, what Nicholas was talking about? By the way, I've invested both in 58 and Sesha. So I certainly, two of the entities that Nick spoke about earlier. So I certainly hope those do generate returns, but also for me, generate jobs. That's what's important for me. I live in the US, but I'm still, as you can hear, I'm South African. I'm still rooted in South Africa and the South African story. So for me, job creation is very important. So that's what I'm hoping to get out of those investments. So family business issues, dispute resolutions, do you specify things like that? Family meetings, I'm a big one on those, like every year at least, or every 6 months, the family gets together and there's an agenda and it's facilitated and things get discussed. It could be extraordinary ones that are held. The one that I'm shocked with, and I suppose it's my own stuff, is prenuptial contracts. I've worked with a number of families that have got kids who don't even have partners, but they're already putting their prenuptial contracts together. So these are the sorts of things that kind of would kind of be discussed and go into a family constitution. So if I go back to the beginning, there's kind of the work that I'm doing around multi-generational wealth is like focusing on the family, focusing on the family business, focusing on the family wealth. Often these discussions bleed into each other, and out pops a family constitution, which is just a document which is not cast in stone, but it's something that can help guide the family and the next generation of the family to say, okay, this is what they were thinking at the time. This is why they were thinking these sorts of things. This is what was important for them about the family, about the role that the family was playing in the society it is living in, and how they were choosing to manage their wealth, use their wealth. And it's just, yeah, I find very useful for the next generation. Part of that, and the last thing that I want to say is financial literacy. I think that underpins all of this. And this is one of the things that I really encourage next gen. Not all kids or the next gen family members are financially literate, and it becomes really hard if they don't pay attention to those sorts of things. Okay, let me stop now. Happy to take questions, comments, challenges.
Well, David, I actually put my hand up there. It's funny because you beat me to it. Because one of the major problems that we've got, and I can see Alex has joined us as well, and Alex and I debate this. Oh, it feels like daily. It's probably not daily, but certainly weekly. We've got all these mastermind members, and one of their greatest challenges is not only how do I pass the money on correctly to my children in the right structures and whatever, but it's actually how do you do that financial literacy. And they've even given them access to some of the courses we've got, or, to be honest, anyone in the world that's got an internet connection could be on this webinar right now. It's free.
Right.
The point being is that they don't turn up. And so one of the questions we've been having over and over again, and I'm going to pivot to you, Alex, after David, but I'd love to know, David, if you've got any pearls of wisdom of how people can get their children to, I don't know, play the money game, if you want to call it that, or, get the financial literacy, because that seems to be one of the greatest challenges before they even worry about handing over the wealth,
Right. So each family is different. I don't have a blanket. It's certainly, I step into the families that I work with this in mind, but every family is different. I can just let me talk about my own 2 kids, just to give you an example. I've got 2 young adult children. My daughter is, she's just, in fact, starting her first job next week. She's finished college here and starting her first job. For her, I figured out structure works well for her. So I've, together with her for the last 4 or 5 years, I have helped her have a monthly budget. She's been away at college, so I've helped her put together, put together a budget and help her manage it and say month by month, how did it go last? Well, I spent too much here and too little here. And over time, she learned around budgeting. Then I introduced for her like a four bucket system. I said, okay, you've got money to spend, you've got money to save for something that's important for you that you know, money to invest, and money to give away. Like, choose. What do you want? Who do you want to give away to? What sort of proportion? How are we going to do it? So for her, that created a structure, and that structure provides some guardrails for her. She's still got a long way to go. We do it monthly. I think we should do it weekly, because after the beginning of the month, it's like first week of the month, half her allowance is spent. My son, on the other hand, I said, he's like entrepreneurial. He's a few years younger. He's always got cash. I have no idea what he's doing. I think he could be selling drugs. I don't know, running a prostitution ring. I have no idea. He has always got money. And I try to institute the same sort of structure for him, and he absolutely rejected it. And I realized quite quickly, he's starting his first business. I was explaining this to Nick a few days. He's starting a laundry business. He's in final year of high school. He's starting one at the school. He's an entrepreneur. Why would if he's an entrepreneur, like, the thinking about entrepreneurship is creating your own wealth. Why would I put him on a salary, which is the opposite? Do you know what I mean? So giving him a monthly allowance is like providing him with a salary, and that's not going to motivate him at all. So I tried with him initially. I said, this is what your allowance is. He said, I don't want it. You can measure. If I spend more than that, I'll pay you back. And he's never spent more than that. I don't know, because he's always got his own cash coming in. I probably should dig deep. I'm too nervous to find what it is. So I've realized with them, it's a pull factor. So for my son, he loves the idea of running a business, and my wife, who is an entrepreneur, is now teaching him about cash flow and money. So the idea of financial literacy is important to him because of where he's at the time. For my daughter, it's around the structure. When she's run out of money, I'm saying, all right, so what are you going to do for the next 2 weeks? You've got to make a choice. So you're going to go out jawling, or you're going to drive, buy bread and milk for your last week. What you going to do? So that's how I've worked with them. And I found with different families, it's finding the key that unlocks that for them. And it's not necessarily presented on a platter. I'm working with another family now where one son is reluctantly becoming the successor. The other son wants nothing to do with the business and is absolutely useless at managing money. For him, I'm actually putting a financial advisor, like a coach, like you mentioned earlier. He's going to have to go through coaching. The other son is going to have to step up to the plate, but it's reluctant in both those cases. So I found if there was like a magic bullet that I could give you, I can't. I'm just finding that it is going in with those thoughts in mind around how do we get, or how these next generation people going to step up to the plate. And if they're not, they have to get professionals to do so. And how do they do that, at least, to get trusting professionals that they can work with?
So Nicholas, I'd like to pivot to you, and but before I do, Alex, I'm going to come back to you. But I'm just going to give you the question, Nicholas, so you can think about it. One of the conversations that I've had on multiple times at a Calio level is you guys are trying to provide a solution which not only are you a multi-family office, but also sort of multi-generational, and being able to provide kind of different levels, knowing that it's not just this generation, but it's future generations. I'd love to unpack and understand that slightly more in the context of what we're discussing here. But before we go to you, Nicholas, I wanted to put it back to you, Alex, because it's interesting, even based on what David's just said, with some of the ideas you've had around millennials and wealth, and Alex is literally this morning just qualified as a certified coach. but obviously he's been in our wealth space for 7 years. But he's 29 years old, so he can kind of speak their language. And I want to say our language, but I'm not being naive. So.
Well, Scott, I almost feel like we should create our own, dictionary because of all the different analogies and words that we come up with. I don't think we're far away from that. So no, it's a true pleasure to share a screen with both of you, Nicholas and David, and just listening to you talk. And it's really, I think we're in a very interesting time where it's all about how do you make, we work hard for our money, and how does that money work harder for us? And we very seldom actually start asking these thought-provoking questions of like, how do we actually impact the world, and how do we actually leave a legacy behind? And I think one of the things that I was listening to you, David, now, and making a couple of notes, and the flashbacks comes up over and over, sitting with families in their homes, in Johannesburg and Durban, then the father, it's new money, but that's also a question I have, but I'll come back to it. But like, it's new money, so the father has built up an entire amazing empire from basically nothing, and has supported his family, and now its in-laws getting involved, and they want nothing to do with the company, and he's like heading to I think he's now 74, 75 years old, but he's wanting to power through, and he's like, he doesn't want to leave it because no one really wants it. They want to kind of go and do something else. So it's quite an interesting experience having new money, where it's like almost a expectation that the family has to kind of now, pass the baton and carry on with the legacy. But it was quite a surreal moment, actually, just listening to you speak, and with the different lens of looking at what that looked like. So that was just an observation. But one of the questions that I have is, are you dealing with a lot of new money, or is it old money, or is it kind of both when it comes to these type of things? Because I do think that's quite relevant, is if it's old money, it's a whole different conversation versus if it's new money. Right, it is. Absolutely. And I'm dealing with both. One of the dynamics in South Africa is, and because of our past, there are a lot of African families that have been denied the opportunities to build up generational wealth. And now, for the first time, we have a few African people that have generated wealth, probably for the first time, that they can bequeath to their kids. So that absolutely is a completely different dynamic when we're talking about fourth or fifth. I mean, there's one family here that's, I think they're fifth generation. They great whatever started a super mom and pop supermarket, which is now billions and billions and multinational and a conglomerate, and none of the kids actually work for the business. Well, not none, but very few. So the dynamics are so different. The one thing, like to the family, to the person that you speaking about, I spoke earlier, right at the beginning of the conversation around family businesses, is that, and this might talk a bit to what Nick was talking about. When we talk about legacy, are we often talking about money? And how much do people actually value the business? Do they value, if no one's in, it's a fascinating thing for me why people would fight for the business tooth and nail, when it might just be better to sell it. And when I say that to people, the horror on their faces, like, this is my baby, this is what I fought tooth and nail, blah, blah, blah. And I hear these stories all the time. And what I find sometimes is those businesses can actually disable the next generation. They're handcuffed to that business in ways that is disabling. And then I challenge them around, so what's more valuable for you? Where's the capital to go back to what Nicholas was saying earlier? Where's the capital here? What's more important? Is the business more important than your family? And what do you want to leave for your family? So I know a number of well, they're not, I don't have too many of these clients, because they say, they're giving all their money away, or they're spending all their money because they don't want to deprive their kids of their own journeys. It's not about spoiling. It's around, they've had such an amazing life and opportunities. They're going to
pay for their kids' education, and let them carve their own lives. So I don't necessarily sit with the belief that passing over the business, family owned, family controlled, is necessarily a good thing for the family. And I'm clear. My client is the family. That's my first choice. It's not the money. It's not the business. It's actually not even the individual members. It's actually the family as a unit.
Yeah. I think what is fascinating on this topic is it hits quite home, because my family has a business and I'm very involved in that. And literally it's been built up over the last 15 years that I've been part of. So I have I think I have quite a buy-in, and because it's a passion of both my parents, my sister, and I, it's kind of to me, it's not their business, it's our business. So there's not this disconnect between it's theirs versus it's ours. So I think if that's obviously a component to it, then it changes the entire dynamic, and then it's a different experience. And I think to go back to what Scott was saying is,
just to interrupt you there, just reminded, I watched Kevin Hart, the comedian, he was telling me about, sorry, it's just a not irrelevant story, but it might be a silly story. He was being interviewed, I think it was by Jerry Seinfeld in one of these talk shows, and he asked him about, like, so what happened when he grew up poor. Kevin Hart grew up very poor and he made a lot of money, and when his kids grew up and realized that his dad was famous, his son came to him and said, "Dad, like, you're famous, if people know you." He said, "Yes." He said, "Like, are we rich?" He said, "No, I'm rich." So it's great it's great. Don't underestimate the value of what I was getting to, what's been bequeathed to you, consciously or unconsciously, that it's our business, that you're passionate. So the way you describe it is that you're not handcuffed to it. For you, that's natural, for you to get joy, pleasure, fulfillment in your meaning from your life. It's going into the business. That's great.
Yeah, I think that's key.
I interrupted you, Alec.
Just remember, I also want to pivot back to Nicholas on the question I asked as I pivot to you.
Yeah, no. So I think the question that you asked, Scott, was, how do we see this going forward? And what I'm very excited about is actually working with our mastermind members to work on the millennials in wealth, so that it is the next generation, and we do kind of start cultivating an entire culture where, we had a wealth weekend, what is it, 2-3 months ago, where our youngest mastermind members, her daughter was 19, I think 18, 19 or 20, around about there. And I mean, the way that she perceived wealth, and even just the conversation about it was eye-opening, it was thought-provoking. So we want to kind of cultivate this call it ecosystem, where it's our mastermind members as kids, and then also let's take it out to the community and build this entire ecosystem, where it's not we're waiting for our parents to talk to us about this, we're actually starting to talk about it ourselves. And that's where the excitement comes from.
That's key. I find often when I'm stepping into families, and I'll shut up after this, is that parents often don't talk to their kids early enough. Certainly happened to me, and I was left completely unskilled and unprepared to manage a lot of money. The catch up I had to do was really unfair, but it certainly I encourage families to talk early and often with their kids.
Nicholas, from your perspective, in terms of, as I've always understood, you guys are trying to offer, let's call it the multi-generational, and in terms of that process at Calio. Talk a little bit about this conversation, not only in your own thought pattern and belief system, but also with what you guys are doing at a Calio level.
So I think, at a Calio level, I mean, the more and more families we operate with, the more and more evident it becomes that we're not only talking to the creator, we're talking to the next generation. I mean, it's just, it's obvious. And I think these days, with access to information, the younger generation have actually got a lot to bring to the table. And a lot of the younger generation have actually kind of pushed this, let's say, conscious capital direction, where they are, they see themselves differently. They see themselves as custodians of the planet, for example, and they want ways in which they can, find meaning in what they're doing, and ways in which that they can do good in what they're doing. So that's one element. And the other element is that we've acknowledged that there's this huge gap between, and they're very different. The father or the mother, whoever the creators are of the wealth, are very different to the children. And what we've done, and we've, I think, reasonably successfully done, is brought in and partnered with David, and and to have these family conversations, and it's about bringing them in. And I know that Garth, who is the co-founder of Calio and who heads up family office, he always, even from the beginning, he used to bring in the kids to the investment reporting discussions. And I thought that was so interesting at the time, and that was a long time ago. And he would even we've had so many of the next gen play intern roles at Calio, which has been incredible. And they come and they spend time in the office, and some of them have stayed for quite some time, and then they move on. But it's about kind of imparting that financial literacy, which David was talking about, and how important that is, and then also realizing how different people receive knowledge and what they want to be. So for us, I think it's important to have the conversations. It's the same principles that you would apply to an individual, you apply to the family, and that includes the children. So naturally, you're going to cover what the joint values are and purpose of the individual members, and then work out a trajectory for them to be the custodians of that, and for it to then serve their life, where capital should serve the life that you're looking to live, not the other way around. And I think that is an important, it's been an important lesson, and I think that bringing in the kind of next gen earlier rather than later has certainly helped with that. I don't know if that really answers your question, but we've got a whole team of people who work around that, David being one of them, to bring the next gen into the process so that there's that continuity.
Well, I think what's just interesting just in what we're doing right now, and again, for those that aren't part of the mastermind or weren't there at the Wealth Weekend, the last one, the one in March, it was so interesting because Anthony literally started, and the 6 pillars to wealth, his presentation takes 45 minutes. And he was like, how long do I need? And he said 45 minutes. And we ended up talking for 2 full days. And I think one of the things that we're doing right now is exactly context to that. Like, there's no one definitive, let's call it PowerPoint, and say, this is as you just said, David, there's no right way. Okay, do this and your kids will do this. It's a conversation and a discussion and what's working. I mean, there's a great post here from Mike, who's in the UK and recently joined the mastermind. And, he said, I bribed my daughter when she was 23, 24 to read 4 personal finance books. I've paid her £1 a page. She likes reading, but wasn't interested in money. She's now 26. She's paid off a student loan overdraft in less than a year. She has a separate bank account for standing orders and direct debits, aka regular bill payments. Most months she saves £400 into an emergency fund, into an instant access savings account, might soon be needed to be 12 months rent in advance. She also pays enough into a company pension to get the full match of her employer, and it's invested 100% in equities in a global fund with 0.12% annual management charge. She now has an excellent credit rating. I'm about to give her some private equity shares for her to sell in about 3 years' time. This will teach her capital gains tax. She also transferred a pension from a former employee into a personal pension with Vanguard. And I just wanted to kind of read that out for Mike, because I think not only, well done to him for achieving that, but hopefully it can also, give other people some ideas around what they could do. Nicholas, there's a question here for you. Have you faced any situations where your commitment to conscious capitalism and maximizing profits seem to be in conflict? How did you navigate that?
I think that's almost like it's always existing, because there's always a trade-off. And I think that there's very rarely not a trade-off. Let's say that, and it's about balancing that, and it's about, you know, coming from it from the perspective that you want to do good, but understanding that not every aspect about it is going to be good. I mean, I'll give you an example. So we're in a lending business, right? So one could say, well, I mean, lending, like what, putting people in debt, is that a good thing? Well, lending has existed for as long as any of us can remember. It's not a new thing. It's been around and it's not going anywhere, right? But what happens if we came into the lending sector and we did it ethically? So we took something that was effectively a you know, something just for profit. It's still very much for profit, but we're applying a conscious lens and ethical practices to it. So that's one example where we've definitely had to face that, and that's how we navigated that. There've been many others.
Can I jump in here, Nicholas? Because I think I'm a client of his, and first and foremost, and I think he helped me with this. And this goes back to his comment around social capital. I think what is useful for me was going through a process of putting together, like, what's it, a Monte Carlo model. I know that I have enough money to be able to live at the lifestyle that I want to, and it's a great lifestyle. And then what do I choose to do? Do I want to maximize profits, or do I want to make enough profits and do good at the same time? And I think Nicholas, you did a fantastic job in doing that, in recognizing, so I might not get 15%, I might get 12%, or it might take a little bit longer. But knowing that, knowing with the comfort of knowing that my current lifestyle will be supported and there will be a surplus, enabled me to do that.
Great, thank you for that. So and it comes back to the same thing. There's no one size fits all. So, you know, some people, for example, you know, have various different situations where they need to accumulate, you know, a lot more capital, so that they are looking to be in high growth in purely profit based. However, there are still ways and means that one can invest that. For example, the example of Patagonia. Patagonia is a clothing company, right? You could invest in Patagonia or Zara. Okay, Patagonia is delivering incredible returns. Amazon, another business that applies conscious capital philosophies, they've done just okay. But the question was, have I faced these myself? And the answer is yes. And the lending is one of the examples. There are others. For example, property development. Okay, am I now building? Do we need to build? You know, the more we build, the more we're extracting from the land. But then we look at the model, and we look at this particular company that we invested in. Oh, well, you know, their approach is slightly different. They're taking an old office block and converting it into residential and hotel. So for me, that's a you know, tick, 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 tick. And they're building community, and it's a diverse community, and it's based on creativity. Okay, fantastic. Geez, and they're looking at sustainable technologies. But it's all for profit. It's a bottom line business. That for sure. It's just that the community that is buying into that is actually attracted to that, so that actually works for them. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but the reality is that we are faced with that almost daily when looking at investments, and it's just about, you know, relooking at it and doing things differently, but not necessarily throwing the baby out the bath.
So guys, I'm very conscious of the time, and by the way, I'm fascinated by this conversation. And as I said to both of you, even when we first spoke, this has probably been one of the things that we've struggled with most at a mastermind level, where people have said, hey, this generational wealth, and, you know, well, how do we do it? And, you know, quite frankly, I haven't known how to do it. So I wanted, but I also want to be conscious of time and the realization that, you know, tonight was an introduction. If people want more information, they can literally type in their Wealth Weekend, and we can get back to them. And, you know, it is exclusively for for our mastermind members, it is by invite only, but we can still, have a chat with stuff. So I wanted to kind of finish off with two questions, basically. The one, Nicholas, is to you. And my biggest takeaway from everything you said is that our aim is to grow our social capital. Now, I love this because even someone who's on this webinar tonight who has no money, because people often have this mindset, I've got no money, I can't do anything, which is rubbish. Because one of the biggest things I've learned in life, if you can add value to other people, you'll be amazed what's happened. So, my question to you would be, do you have any kind of gifts, lessons, or anything that you would like to share with someone, whether they're a billionaire or whether they're a startup, a starter around, growing your social capital? Because I think that's, such an important mindset shift that you shared with people. Is not only how much money you got, it's how much social capital do you have?
I think the place to start is to really kind of look inside yourself, find time for that, and to work and develop what you think your purpose is and how you can be of service. Because how social capital is built is through your service into society. And that could be, there's so many different ways one can do that. You can join an NGO, you can offer whatever you've learned in your life to other people. You can facilitate connections to people. There are multiple ways that you can do this. We can invest into parts of society that enable people to have access to all the forms of capital. And so one way to do that would be to relook at, investing into education, investing into entrepreneurial programs, investing into cultural activities that bring us together, that through that diversity, we can create better solutions for our societies. And that once we are able to kind of improve that moral fabric, where you actually care about the person next door and you're able to give them something of service, whether they, for example, I live in Scarborough, it's a very affluent area, where just behind the hill here is an area called Ocean View. And how do we see people as another human, and how can we help them, and them in turn help us develop our social capital? And that strengthens the resilience of the system, and we then will live better lives. So it's this kind of an interconnected process.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for that. I think that's it's a journey. It's a journey, but I love the way that you said it starts with purpose. And one of the things that I'm eternally grateful is that I find my purpose in my early 30s, and it's a life changer, because when you have tough days and tough weeks and tough months and sometimes even tough years, you keep going when you know you're on purpose. So, what you said around what you want to do and how you want to take people through it at the Wealth Weekend to discover one's purpose, that can be invaluable, absolutely invaluable, in terms of the bigger picture. David, from your perspective, I find it fascinating. I kind of sit here and I think to myself, on one hand, I love what you said with the family constitution. I've got a 12-year-old son, and and there's a part of me going, okay, well, cool. And I know you don't know the answer to this either yet, neither do I. But one of the things that I'm fascinated about is how we can kind of take that knowledge that previously only the billion-dollar family could work with, and kind of, make it more accessible, democratize it a bit is the way that I'm trying to say it. And I suppose my question would be, let's say that someone didn't know you. They've heard you tonight. They've said, right, family constitution, etc. Are there any kind of simple tricks? I took one away as an example. You said, make sure you're having the family meeting. You know what I mean? Whether that's monthly or quarterly or annually, as you said. But are there any other simple tricks that you would recommend to a family to start to instill this generational wealth? Obviously, ideally, you go all the way through the family constitution and everything in between. But just some simple tricks and takeaways and hacks, whatever you want to call it, that people can implement quickly.
So off the top of my head, let me think of three. This is my McKinsey training. Let me give you three. So the one thing that trumps everything is learning to listen to your kids. So when you ask questions, ask open-ended questions, and listen to the answers. So don't not lecture them. That would be very, very important. You'll find out who their kids are, but more important, it helps the kids find out who they are. And I think it is a process of discovery in terms of, you said you found your purpose at 30. That's not true of everybody. Some people might find their purpose at 10. Some people might spend their whole lives looking for their purpose. People are on different journeys, and listening to your children is the biggest gift I think that you can give your kids. More than the $1 billion or whatever that in a trust that you could do, is helping them find themselves within that. The other thing I would do is instead of lecturing, involve your kids or invite your kids to participate in those sorts. Like Nick mentioned that about his partner, Garth, invited family members to kids to sit into investment committee meetings. So as a parent, invite your kids when age appropriate, and you'll know for your own kids, invite them to be part of discussions. Invite them to, as you figuring things out, help, like they can sit alongside you, walk alongside you as you're doing stuff. One of the things, I mean, that's based, I ran a dads and daughters program in South Africa, as I was pretty clueless how to raise a daughter. But one of the things I realized that dads do differently to moms, which is around those sorts of things. And it doesn't have to be about money. When it's around changing a tire or fixing a plumbing thing or changing a light bulb or whatever it might be, going to the bank or figuring out some sort of crazy transaction. Talk to them saying, this is what I'm sitting with. And invite them in. Maybe they'll accept, maybe they won't. Maybe they'll be distracted, maybe they won't. You'll never know what they'll take in. So the listening, they're engaging. And I think it's important for me, particularly around next gen, is make it fun. The thing about money that I've learned is that it generates so much anxiety more than anything else. It's a bigger taboo than any other topic you can imagine. And the research is bearing that out. So if you hold that in mind, if you lighten that for your kids, I don't mean trivialize it, I mean lighten it so it's not so anxiety provoking, and making it fun, they're more chance that they're likely to engage.
I love, as you can see, I like to take notes, and kind of my takeaway from both of you is, what you said, and by the way, Nicholas, Lisa said, so much value shared. Thank you so much. We all listen to this family, including our 13-year-old son, who's learning so much through Wealth University. Loved hearing about social capital. So I just, so well conceptualized in terms of what you said. But as you said, find your purpose, be of service, and figure out how you can add service to society. And it's such a wonderful way. And for me, David, when I hear you, it's what do you do with your children? Listen, engage, and have fun. It's literally like, keep it simple. To the process.
Yeah.
You know what? I remember one thing my dad told me, and he said, his dad told him, he said that money is a fruit of production. Okay, so now, what is a fruit? A fruit is sweet. It's a sweet thing. It's a beautiful thing, and that's when you were saying about that, it must be fun. It must be fun, and it's about creating things, and it's about creating things that are good for you, good for others, good for the environment, because you are part of that. We are learning more and more that there is no other, because the doorstep is coming to you sooner. It's closing in. It's just a fact, and it can be fun doing it in a way that is more holistic, more considered, more interconnected. It can be fun and sweet.
Well, I think it's a great way to sort of end off, and why I wanted to say that is that we intend to have lots of fun together. We're coming to your venue at 58 in the Cradle of Humankind. The intention is to spend 4 nights together, to be learning, to be growing, to be having great conversations, and also to be having some fun on the side with the different ventures and things we've got planned. one of the things that I just wanted to reiterate to people, I'm not aware of something that's been put together like this, where you've got David in the room, you've got Nicholas in the room, you've got Garth in the room, you've got Corin in the room with the Enneagram and Wealth. And it's really an extremely unique experience, which I think for the Mastermind members, it's a gift that I think few of them even realize the value of having all of those members in the room. So I'm really, really looking forward to it. And, you know, to have those type of like-minded caliber people in the room, plus the rest of the Mastermind members, is going to be something that's quite a unique gift for everyone. So, David, I just want to thank you so much for your time. Nicholas, I want to thank you for your time in terms of the overall process. I'm going to finish off now and just talk a little bit more if people do want to join some of the ideas that Alex and I have been putting together, because there's a lot of work that we're doing. And Nicholas, I know you're on American time, and we said we would chat afterwards. I'll finish off and I'll ping you and we can jump back on Zoom or whatever in terms of that process. But if you don't mind, what I'd like to do here, and there's lots of nice comments coming through, a profound, emotional, insightful session. Billionaires understand the beauty of compound interest. So yeah, very much so, David, in terms of that process. So what I wanted to share with people just as to finish off here is, you know, often at these type of things, it's like, wow, you know, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. There's a lot going on, a lot of conversations that are happening. And I spoke to you about Jordan and the type of person that Jordan was and the type of needs that Jordan was and how he achieved that. I also spoke to Victoria and the type of woman that she was and what her needs were and how she achieved that. And you know what really started for us, and this is as far back as I first met Nicholas, was we used to do buy trips. You used to jump on an airplane with me, fly over to America. We'd go and set up a LLC, which is a structure over there, and a bank account. We'd go look at properties. And we built some incredible friendships on that. And you know, the investors would come over, they'd meet other investors, we'd meet the partners on the ground. And it was such an incredible way to create community. And I know Michael's actually on this webinar, and this was a picture of us on one of the buyers trips. You know, from that, we basically evolved it. And I remember, you know, comments from people that they would never have been able to get it done by themselves, rather than actually getting on an airplane, meeting other people and coming and participating. And we evolved that about 18 months ago, nearly 2 years ago, into a mastermind. And this was a collaboration done with Calio in terms of the overall process. And it was a holistic approach. It was like, right, what is happening with your pension? How do you optimize your current structures? What is your tax and structuring? What are your current investments? What do you want to invest in? How do you diversify across all the different assets, both the stock market, the primary markets, the secondary markets, etc.? And we basically, our whole philosophy was, how do we diversify across countries, currencies, assets, partners, and time, and build up globally diversified passive income? And I wanted to kind of evolve that, because this has been a conversation that Alex and I specifically have been having with a number of our mastermind members. We've been saying, well, there's really three ways that someone can achieve everything we're talking about. The first one is do it yourself. So again, over the last couple of years, through the Wealth University, we've built all the home study courses. You can go and do it yourself. You can go and read the books. You can go and do Wealth Going Global. You can go and do Asset Mastery. The second way is you can have it done with you. So you can kind of partner with people. You might do Wealth Going Global and the wealth plan is there, and you can kind of work with the likes of Alex or me, and you can kind of, you know, done with you. And the third way is done for you. And what we're finding more and more is that people are actually really wanting the done for you approach. So that's where someone actually holds their hand, takes a holistic approach, and helps them create the done for you process. So what we are literally in the process of launching, and no one's even seen this before, it's literally in its beta phase in terms of where we're going. But we're gonna be launching the 5K Club. So that's people that want to be, you know, getting at least 5K in terms of passive income, in terms of their portfolio growth, etc. This is for retail to sophisticated investors. So this is people that consider themselves currently retail and they want to evolve to sophisticated investors. So this is all to do with, you know, not only the lingo, the understanding, the investment, where are you investing, what are you investing in, about having a portfolio process. And ultimately, it's about mastering your portfolio. And I'm going to come to you, Alex, to go into these in more detail. I just want to kind of go through each one of the three. The second is the 10K Club. And this is where it's high net worths that are looking to become global investors. So they often are sophisticated. They're in their country. They generally are kind of they've got a lot of their eggs in one basket. And now they're wanting to go global and ultimately, you know, have a properly globally diversified portfolio. And their whole philosophy and mantra is about global diversification. And then finally, it's the 25K Club. And this is all about generational wealth. This is much more akin to what Nicholas and David have just spoken about in terms of this overall process. And this is all about ensuring your legacy. And one of the things that myself and Alex and our partners at Callio and our partners with Karen and them at Callio Consulting, and all of the different parts of the puzzle. So what Alex and I specifically have done is we said, well, what is really working for our mastermind members, and also what is not working? Which are the parts that need to be fixed? And Alex, I'd love you to talk to the 4 main areas that you find where we believe that people get the most value, and why we've broken it down into these 3 categories, because there's 3 types of people trying to fulfill 3 different types of needs in terms of that process. And I'd love you just to talk through, because you've been one of the people that's helped in terms of being the brainchild of bringing all the partners together to provide this personalized, bespoke, and holistic solution that, in my opinion, can't be found anywhere else on the planet.
Sorry, on cue, I my AirPods disconnected and stopped working. Can you hear me, Scott?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I think just to go back to what you were saying about the different stages, and I think just to add a little bit more meat on the bone to what you spoke about, there is you and I have been doing this for quite a while now, and sitting in different, in front of different clients in their living rooms and their lounges for quite a while, and we've heard a lot of different conversations, different needs, and a different stuff that they needed. So over the last couple of weeks, we've been working with a lot of the clients, the mastermind clients, and understanding what their needs are and what the limitations of what we're currently offering them are. And then also taking into account what we have developed as a business for the last 20 years, and how do we actually synthesize that into separate different groups to speak to separate different needs of different clients. So some clients need help with getting their portfolio started. As you mentioned, some people need their portfolio to go to the next level, i.e. globalizing, or effectively getting it to a point where it actually is substantial. Or some people looking to make sure that their 60 years worth of hard work is now going to be invested and stored correctly. And also there's a plan for legacy existence and wealth preservation. So that's been kind of the key elements that's been driving us forward in the sense of developing these products and developing these different things that we want to offer our community. So to speak to the very first thing, there's really 4 things we're going to be offering to the community. And the first thing is personal wealth coaching. And that's all about the stuff that we've been talking about, the Enneagram and wealth. It's been high quality thinking, transformational change. These are all the things that over the last 2 years we've been experiencing at different stages, but we want to optimize it and actually get it to a point now where we're adding massive value to the community. The second thing is all about having a support team.
Sorry, Alex, one thing that we found there, even with the current mastermind members, is the value in the coaching component, where you've got the accountability, but actually taking it to the next level. Both you and I are certified coaches, and actually helping people unlock, because often it's a mindset shift or something that needs to take place, holding people to account so that you get that geometric momentum and predictable momentum.
Exactly. Thanks, Scott, for catching that. And I think just to kind of plug into that and then pivoting, is it's all about getting high quality thinking and actually taking the clients to the next level. That we all have our own solutions. We all know what we need to do. It's just kind of holding that mirror that you always speak about to the clients and getting those aha moments or insight moments. The next key thing is really to support the community and our mastermind members with bespoke, seasoned team members. So these are the likes of Callio's, going from structuring to international tax to traders, to making sure that they can take care of the secondary market. So yeah, secondary market. The platform Wealth Migrate takes care of the primary market. And then also, how do we facilitate that? And how do we actually put that into a very palpable and easy way to understand it, so that it's not this overbearing, overwhelming, sticky, hard, between a rock and a hard place, but how is it actually very easy to understand, and how do we take them through that? And then probably the most important is also then setting up the allocation of the portfolio. You know, we spoke about 4 buckets today, like having the 4 buckets analogy and having the 3 bucket analogy, and what does that mean? And how do we make sure that you currently have enough cash to sustain your 6-month lifestyle, but then also actually over the next 5 to 10 years, do we actually really need to access that money, or can we put it into higher risk or lower risk or different, you know, risk categories that can actually take your, let's just call it X amount, to double or triple in the next 10 years? And when do we actually need to draw down on that portfolio effectively?
Well,
So
I
that's
mean, the fancy term for that is an ALM. I like to simplify it and call it a wealth plan. But effectively what the Calio team do with each person bespokely is create a model for your life. And it's a bespoke model so that you actually have the peace of mind to know that not only where you are is being optimized, where you want to get to has been thought through, and then having a plan to get from A to B.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a plan. I mean, one of the biggest takeaways that I've had over the last 6 months, seeing these mastermind members actually, you know, start getting results, is it's less about where they're investing and what they're investing in. It's less of that. It's more of the architecture of what the portfolio is supposed to do, and that reassurance of there's a plan and there's a, you know, this is what the next 6 to 10 years, what that looks like.
And taking away the complexity.
Yeah.
Because so many people have a lot of complexity, a lot of wasted fees and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. 3 trusts within 1 trust within Australia, within Guernsey. That's probably the most complicated structure I've ever heard of in my life. Anyway, so I think, yeah, we've touched on that. And probably the one that I'm most excited about is the in-person events, holistic wellness, bespoke, you know, guest speakers, hosting events at the cradle of humankind, and, you know, the wine sessions that we had a couple of months ago, and what's next. You know, next year is quite exciting. Are we going to have sessions maybe in London or US, or, you know, what does that look like? So these are all the sessions. Like the in-person events is going to ultimately be where we bring it all together, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be a group of 40 or 50 people. It could be as simple as in city, in country, could meet up for wealth dinners. You know, Scott, we've probably had the best sessions with clients sitting around a table having steak and wine. You know, it's not always death by PowerPoint. You know, it's sometimes just a conversation and actually understanding what are the needs of the clients. So yeah, so those are the 4 things really. It's the personal wealth coaching. It's having the support of the team, and again, not 2 guys in the garage starting out, but actually quite seasoned professionals. The setup of the portfolio and allocation, and then ultimately where we bring it all together in person events. And then, yeah, so that's kind of what we've been. I like to keep the analogy of we're being in the kitchen baking a cake. So that's what we've been busy baking, and we're quite excited to bring it to market soon. So watch the space.
I think just because I'm conscious of everyone's time, you know, whether you resonate with the 5K club in terms of mastering your portfolio, or the 10K club in terms of global diversification, or the 25K club in terms of ensuring your legacy, you know, this is obviously a bespoke solution. We can't offer it to everybody because every single person is dealt with in an individual way. So there is limited. If you are interested, literally go to diversificationmastermind.com. You'll set up an application call, and Alex or myself will meet with you face to face. Takes about 30 minutes. We just want to identify the risks, understand where you're at, what you're trying to achieve, see if you qualify, or more importantly, not if you qualify, but which level is right for you in terms of that process, and how we can assist you with it. My one request is if you do book a time, please make sure you turn up on time. Your time is valuable, so is ours. And then obviously there's only limited time offerings, you know, limited spaces in terms of where we're at. We are super excited for the first group that are going to go through this because it's going to be a very bespoke offering. It's literally being tailor-made and built as we speak in terms of this process. Again, you can go and see what all our clients have sort of said in the past. This is at a whole nother level. This isn't just the home study course. This isn't even just the mastermind. This is at a done for you basis in terms of taking it to an entire new level. And one of the things that we're going to bring in is a guarantee. So we will actually work with you to ensure that you get the results, and we will work with you until you get the results. So it's quite an interesting way in terms of which we're backing ourselves to help people get the results, as long as they do. So I just want to be clear here. You can take a horse to water, but as long as they follow the guidelines, then we'll be in a symbiotic relationship to get results. What have I done in terms of putting my own money where my mouth is? I paid $14,000 for Singularity University, $25,000 for Roger Hamilton's Entrepreneur Network, $40,000 for Mavericks, which is how I got to spend 2 weeks with Richard Branson, and $50,000 with Tony Robbins, which was all around the business mastery. So again, nothing that I haven't done myself in terms of really making sure that I get access to the best minds out there, partnering with them to be able to get geometric growth in terms of the process. So whether you're looking for wealth protection, plan B, peace of mind, diversification, freedom, global citizen, empowering your children, immigration, generational wealth, living life unlimited, then we believe we've now created the solutions for you. At a simple level, it's about diversification across countries, currencies, assets, partners, and time. And it's about having the right partners to hold your hand through the process. 2 extra bonuses that, literally if you're wanting to participate now, we're currently literally, going through this process. Again, we've got a session tomorrow. We do it on a monthly basis on the whole Enneagram and wealth. So Karen and her team are taking our mastermind members literally through this as we build up to the Wealth Weekend. And in August, David and Nicholas will be taking our mastermind members further down in terms of the generational wealth space and conscious capital. And then we'll be moving on in terms of the and building up to the Wealth Weekend. And again, there'll also be the access to the Wealth Weekend. Reminding, what the Wealth Weekend is all about. We arrive on Wednesday afternoon, evening. We've got 2 full kind of work sessions, if you want to call it, on Thursday and Friday, and then a game drive on Friday evening, and a lot of fun activities on Saturday with us going home on Sunday. But you've literally got Karen, Nicholas, David, Garth, and myself. Alex will be there as well, all in a room, creating this conversation around these topics. So super, super exciting if people want to go deeper. But I would highly recommend, if this is something that interests you, go along to that link in terms of diversificationmastermind.com, book a call, and let's see if you qualify. A little bit of tough love to finish off. At the end of the day, I always love that thing from Einstein. The definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing and expect different results. And, this was a quote that our partner Shane actually sent to us. And he said, what's so interesting with people, often they don't trust themselves, and they go and talk to their friend or their husband or their wife or their family advisor or their financial advisor or their, pretty much anyone with an excuse to go and talk to someone. And the kind of philosophy is, it's time to take massive imperfect action. Again, when you come on a journey like this, there's no perfect one size fits all. It's a journey we're going together to help people get results. But ultimately, this is your life. Nobody's coming to save you. You've got this. And, I love what James Painter shared in the very first masterclass. More information equals better results. That's what people think. More information equals better results. But it's actually not the truth. Rubbish in equals rubbish out. Multiple opinions creates confusion and indecision. Information after the fact doesn't help. It's like, hey, you should have bought Google shares. Like, no shit, Sherlock. And, you can get the long-term trends right and still lose money through buying and selling at the wrong time. And I think this is where Alex comes back. And, we've literally synthesized it into 4 things. A personal wealth coach to hold you accountable, to hold your hand, and to, make sure that you're getting that predictable momentum. To have an entire team surrounding you to help you with your structures, with your tax, and to help you creating a bespoke plan. Thirdly, when it comes to your investment decisions, to have access to not only the partners and the teams to be able to make the right decisions, to make sure that it's on track with your plan. And thirdly, to have events to get together with like-minded people to be able to discuss this and to grow consciously in terms of the overall picture. So that's what we put together. And if you're interested, literally put it in the chat box or fill in that form. I do remind you that these are the 7 webinars or masterclasses that we've been through. It's been quite a journey over the last 3 months. I'm deeply grateful to all the presenters that have shared their knowledge over the last, 7 different masterclasses. I know we've had phenomenal feedback on them. We will get clever and figure out a way to put all 7 of them in some sort of library. It'll be in the Wealth University, but as a series, if you've missed any of them, I highly recommend you go back and watch some of them. And in conclusion, I suppose you get to decide, do you want to do it yourself? How's that worked for you over the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years? Do you want it, done with you? Or do you want it done for you? And ultimately, these are your decisions in terms of your processes. If you want it done with you or for you, then the diversificationmastermind.com is your next step. Book a call, chat with Alex and I, and we'll see how we can possibly assist you in terms of that overall process. And in conclusion, it's an African proverb I love. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I think if nothing else tonight, we've shared with you the power of partnership. One of the things that I love about working with the Calio team is that this is how they operate. They do everything through partnership. They go find the best of the breed in the different areas. And I think a classic example of that was David tonight, who's been brought in to share with you what they're doing, how he does it with generational wealth, etc. So I not only want to thank the team, Alex and Shane and them, for putting this all together, Kim and everyone else behind the scenes that's making this happen so that our community knows about it. To David and Nicholas, it's been an honor and privilege to share the stage with you tonight. And to the community for being here. What fascinates me always is that what was shared tonight is in the realms of generally people that have $1 billion and can afford a McKinsey's, as an example, or a Nicholas in a family office. And generally the research out there was you needed $250 million in the past to have a family office. But technology has democratized that. And I want you all to pat yourself on the back for being part of this and getting these insights, because I just cannot believe how many people take this information for granted and don't take advantage of it. So well done to all of you who've participated. If it did add value to you, share it with your friends. And David, as always, and I've said it multiple times tonight, Zig Ziglar's principle is you can have anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. And I really appreciate some of the advice that you shared tonight. I'm certainly, with my son, going to try and listen to him. I'm going to try and engage with him, and I'm going to try and have fun with him. And I think it's quite a nice way to end off for the evening. Cheers, mate.